Joey. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Big Moods, which is really a sticker brand that we sell stickers, mostly through our website, direct to consumer. We do a lot of paid social, a lot of influencer marketing and Google advertising to get the word out for our brand, as well as with our stickers, we're actually in over 200 retail locations across the country as well. We started Big Moods about in July of 2018 with my actual identical twin brother, Andy. And for me, it was a side project for a while until a few months ago, took the leap to go full time at this and really grow it into the next phase of it. In addition to Big Mood, being the co-founder of Big Moods, and then all the time that goes towards that, I still do some marketing advising as well for startups and some businesses of other sizes as well. Weekly type meetings where I just give some insight, high level guidance on things. So, at the end of this, I'd be happy to take questions. I know when it comes to paid social, there's so many different types of businesses, right? Like if you're a small business, if you're only an online business, or if you're a large business, I think all of this could apply to you. I would say if you're a really large business and maybe you're starting a new campaign, this is kind of maybe how you treat a campaign, or if you're like looking at it from the ground up, or if you're a small business who's never done it before, or a startup who's never done it before, this is kind of how you can build your foundation to begin with. With that, without further ado, I guess this is kind of going into how you can grow a business with paid social. So keeping in mind the importance of a foundation. 1 second. Sorry, guys. For some reason, doesn't want to go to the next slide here. Okay. So keeping in mind the importance of a foundation, I think before you start spending any money to drive traffic to your website on paid social, or really anywhere for that matter, you got to make sure that you have the right foundation. Otherwise, if you don't, you're kind of just like throwing money away if you don't have the right foundation. So the first foundation is, if you have a website, if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, or any brand that has a website, make sure this website flow works. Make sure people can take the desired action that you want. Like we're an e-commerce company. I want to make sure that if someone clicks add to cart, if they're going to checkout, and if they purchase, that it's actually working. There's no bugs. There's no things aren't slowing down. There's not anything weird about it. I know it sounds simple, but you'd be like really surprised how you just got to make sure you're checking and make sure things are working and all the pipes are connected the right way. Make sure that your website has a decent load time. So especially on mobile and desktop, especially on mobile though, if you're going to be doing paid social on Instagram and Facebook, over 60% of your traffic is going to be coming on mobile. So you really want to make sure it's working well on mobile. Some tools to test your website speed and make sure it's in the right range. I have links there, Pingdom, GT metrics, and just Google Page Insights. I use all of these. Some of them provide different insights. They're always just good high-level gut checks. Try to have a good conversion rate. So obviously, if you're not sending any traffic to your site yet, you don't know what your conversion rate is. But if you do have other traffic sources already that aren't paid social, you really make sure that you don't want to be paying to send traffic to a site that has a 0.2% conversion rate, because no matter what you do, you could do everything else perfect, but if your conversion rate's that low, it'll never actually be profitable, probably, unless like it's a super high ticket item, and even then it's probably not going to be profitable. So make sure if your conversion's below like 1.5%, 2.5%, you're probably not doing enough on the conversion front. Whether you're an e-commerce company selling a product, or whether you're doing like a lead form. E-commerce tips specifically. So, Shopify, BigCommerce, etc. for building your website, hosting it. Shopify makes it really easy. If you don't have a website, or you're trying to sell products online for a new brand or for your existing brand, set up your Instagram and Facebook shopping as well. Obviously you have some of that is required on the Instagram platform, but also some of that is required on the website side too. And set up Google Shopping. These are just foundational stuff When you search Google and you see like the shopping post at the top, you want to make sure that your product's showing up there if someone searches for you. Speaking of Google, so this is the next foundational thing you want to make sure you have. Um, Show up in paid search for basic brand terms. I use Green Lantern Pizza as an example. They're a local pizza place, voted best pizza. Um, and This is an example of them. They show up if someone searches for them. On the right side, you see where they're showing up as a just like organic Google listing. There's different tactics and stuff that you can do for this. This is not my expertise, but I do think there's a lot of people who are very good at this, and I'm sure you can find them online and watch presentations. But at a basic level, you do want to make sure you're showing up in organic and in paid if you can as well. So if your store is Green Lantern Pizza and you're not showing up organically yet, just because the pieces aren't there yet, at the very least, you could probably do some paid search and have a Google listing if you're a physical location. For my company, we don't have one because we don't have like a store that people can go to. But if you're like a gym or a restaurant or something, uh, take the probably 1 or 2 hours of research it takes to get a Google listing. You could even take that a step further, actually. And there's some like programs out there. I think like AT&T or someone, we were talking to them, and there's just like listing sites you can go to that get you on like Google listing, Yahoo, etc. So you'll want to take advantage of that if you do have a physical location. And the reason this is important is because this obviously isn't Facebook or Instagram, but you're going to be spending money. And a lot of those people from Facebook and Instagram are going to go to your site directly from there, but some of them are going to search you. And if they don't, especially ones that are actually more serious about buying it, they want to know that you're legit. And if you're not showing up on Google, they're likely not to buy from you just because they don't feel as comfortable. Make sure you have a remarketing funnel established. So, this is like very basic, like an email collection, like abandoned cart automation if you're selling like a product. Someone's they added your product to cart, they go to checkout, they enter their information, and then they decide not to purchase. Make sure you can set up an automated email flow if you're on like Shopify or something. It's super easy to kind of hit them with an email and say, hey, we noticed you left your cart full. Here's your product. Here's an example of one I got recently from a product online. I thought it was just a good example. I liked their style and the way they did it. It was just straight and to the point. Just having something like this. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3 emails. Maybe you add a coupon for the second or third email. Maybe that's why they abandoned. It was just a little too high for them in the price point. So that's a good. Not everyone you send to your website to begin with is going to convert, but they're interested. So also make sure you're retargeting them. So you have the Facebook pixel, which I'll get into later. So you can make sure that you are retargeting them after they go to your site as well. Organic channels. So be active on the platforms that you will be advertising on. I know it sounds simple, but it is something that is important because in the same way that someone's going to search you on Google, if they see an Instagram ad from you, they're going to go to your Instagram account. If you're not active on it, if you're not doing it the right way, again, that doesn't give the consumer as much confidence in your business. So you just want to do the basic stuff there and consider a winning hero channel to focus most attention on. So we focus most of our attention on Instagram for organic, just because it is a lot of effort to do organic. We post on Twitter, we post on Facebook, but much more sparingly than we do on Instagram because we chose that as like our hero channel. Know your numbers. This one is probably one of the least fun ones, but one of the most important things to do if you're going to be doing specifically paid social. Like this is real money that you're spending. And in addition to needing to know it for paid social, if you have a startup or a small business, or even you're just in a division at a big company, you still need to know your numbers. You should know them like the back of your hand. It'll be a good exercise for you to learn them if you don't know them, because it'll be helpful for you in a lot of other places other than just paid social, other paid advertising, really just other sales channels. So you need to know how much you can spend to acquire a new customer. That's important. So know your average order value, right? So is the average order value on your website $20 or $25? Or what is your average revenue per, if you do like lead gen and type stuff, like what is your average revenue per visitor, average profit per visitor? Know your minimum return on ad spend to break even. So return on ad spend is just like a very basic metric within like Facebook, where I spent $1 and I got $2 return. So my return on ad spend is 2. or $2 return on ad spend. For some people, that's profitable. For some people, that's not. It all depends on what your other costs are associated with that. Because if you spend $1 and you get $2 in revenue, so 2 - 1 is, so that's $1 of new money that you generated, but then you take into consideration all the other costs of the actual product, like your cogs and stuff. Then everything after that is what your gross margin is, and then even that is like only what's feeding into your that's all like truly, I guess, like contribution margin, which would be, I like to call it gross advertising margin. And the super like simple way to look at it is like your margin is your revenue minus your ad spend minus the cogs, or really any other flexible costs that go with selling your product. And then after all of that is really like the new revenue that you generated to go towards things like your fixed costs and payroll and stuff like that. What is your customer lifetime value? So knowing your customer lifetime value is could be really good, especially if you're an e-commerce company, or really though, if you're local too, like if you're a gym or a restaurant, a lot of people are gonna go to you more than once. And if you're an e-commerce store, hopefully you have people buying from you more than once. And that might mean that, if someone is going to go buy pizza from your restaurant, and it's cost you $30 to get them to do that, and they only spend $20, it's unprofitable up front. But if they go back 5 times that year, then that $30 initially was actually really worth it, right? Same with if you're like a gym membership or something, where you're a subscription box, like maybe the subscription is $30 a month, and it costs you $50 to get that subscription. Obviously you have to have like the capital and liquidity to do it up front, but if you know your churn rate and stuff like that, you can make an informed decision to know what you actually can spend per customer, and how long it would take you to break even on that. I always like to err on the side of, if you can, just like at the very least breaking even or making money on your first purchase. But for some of these more subscription long-term things, it's something to look into. And there's a link there to Shopify that kind of teaches you how to calculate your customer lifetime value. Have a budget you're willing to spend, and potentially lose while testing. It's important that, like, the only way you'll know if something is working is to put money in the engine and see what happens. So Facebook has recommended 50 conversions a week. So if you think that your average cost per conversion is going to be $10, what they're saying is that you need to be willing to spend $500. I think you could probably get away with less than that nowadays, especially when you're testing, maybe like even like 20 conversions. You'll know pretty quickly. And there's other indicators you can look at ahead of conversions to know if something isn't performing well. Like if your click-through rate is super low or something, you probably will know before the 50 conversions, that this ad is not going to work, and you can pause it and save some money, test it elsewhere. So now that you have the foundation in place, like I said, which is really important, because if you're going to be spending money to send traffic to your site, you want to make sure that you have the right foundation. Paid social basics. Again, this is more for Facebook and Instagram. So setting up your account for advertising. So we're all very familiar with using Facebook as a person, or Instagram as a person, or even using it as a brand on like what I call like the front end of it, which is where everyone's interacting, the virtual world. But then there's also the whole back end of Facebook, which is what's feeding all of the ads that you're seeing on Facebook. And that's where like ads manager is. You just get there through, it's pretty simple to get there. You just get there through like your Facebook account, and you set it up and all that stuff. But any business should have a business manager, and then within that, you should create an ads account for it as well. And then ads manager is where you're going to go to create ads, and do all the, what I'll get into a little more how ads manager works later on here. And then the Facebook pixel. So pixel is just like fancy term for another piece of code. It's a pixel. So basically it's a piece of code that you put on your website from Facebook that lets your website speak to Facebook. And so that way, you can basically, you put the pixel on your site. The two things that it really helps with is audience building. So if someone clicks on your ad, you're building an audience of everyone who has a Facebook account and clicked on your ad, that you can later retarget on with an ad on Facebook again, as well as conversion optimization. So if someone adds to cart or purchases or submits a lead on your website, you create that event using the pixel, and you can tell Facebook that someone just added to cart, someone just purchased, etc. And then what Facebook will do is, depending on what you optimize the campaign for, A really simple example here would be you create a purchase event. So every time someone purchases, they land on the thank you purchase page. That sends a signal to Facebook to say, hey, this person just converted. And then what Facebook will do, if you're optimizing for purchases, will find people most likely to take that specific action. They won't find people most likely to comment or like. They'll find people most likely to actually take that purchase action. Obviously, some of those other things probably come into it. It's all a black box how it actually works, but that's like a high level. And then tools. So if you really are interested in like rolling up your sleeves and doing Facebook ads yourself, and doing all the optimization and tactics and stuff, which I'm still doing for my company at our stage. Facebook Blueprint is great for establishing a foundation, right? Like how do you use the tools? How do you set it up, etc. You could just Google search Facebook Blueprint and it'll show up, or facebook.com/business/learn. And there's like courses, free courses that you can take to really help you establish the foundation that you need to work from. So this is like within Ads Manager now. There's really three levels. There's the campaign, there's the ad set, and the ad. And then I'm going to kind of like walk you through, if you're an ads manager, I'm not teaching you today how to actually build an ad. What I'm really showing is like, what is the strategy behind building the ads at each of these levels? Because there is strategy that goes into, again, the tactical stuff for how to actually create a campaign, create an ad set, create an ad. You can learn that in Facebook Blueprint. I don't even have close to enough time to kind of get into that here. But yeah, so at the campaign level is really where, from a strategic standpoint, you're deciding, is this campaign based on awareness, consideration, or conversions? They kind of like separate it out into three different spots. If you're a local business and you're trying to drive foot traffic, it's actually not unheard of to do something like an engagement campaign. I've seen that work successfully for local like restaurants and stuff. Obviously, this is thinking of like when obviously that you can do that today with everything going on in the world, but just for consideration. And then if you're a bigger brand and you're really just trying to get the word out and you don't care about that return on ad spend or making money on it, you're probably going to be using reach or more of like the engagement video view metrics. But if you're like, if I spend $1, I need to make $2 and I need to know I made $2, then you're going to really probably be using the conversion and the sales and the traffic. So for the sake of this, I'm going to do conversion. So we click into conversion, and now we're at the ad set level. So now you're building, this is one of the probably most powerful parts of the ad set level is the audience. So right here is just like a high level view of what an audience looks like. It's very basic. Like I didn't do anything to change it here. This was just like the default. But with the custom audience section, that's where if you have a lookalike audience or a website retargeting audience or a custom list, you would choose that audience to be in your campaign that you're advertising to. I'll get into a little more about how to create those later on. And then, here's the location. If you're in the US, you want to do, the entire US, if that's who you serve. And you can, if you're selling online, you obviously could do the entire country. If you're more regional, you'll probably put in like the region that you care about, or the state, or, the location that you care about. Age, you can do different things with age targeting, gender, and then detail targeting. So this is where you do things like interest demographics, right? Like someone interested in the NFL, or someone interested in a certain movie like Star Wars, or demographics like, I don't know, like relationship, recently married, stuff like that. So I'll give you an example of right now, just because this is like no targeting, obviously your potential reach, it shows you what your potential reach could be, which is all of Facebook's users in the United States over the age of 18. If we were to maybe just put one thing here in the detail targeting, I only want to target people who are interested in Detroit Lions. Now I see that they live in the United States, they're over 18, they're any gender, and they're interested in Detroit Lions. Now my potential reach is 4.1 million people. That's a more workable audience. That's actually a pretty solid audience size that you want to see that you're advertising to. So then in addition to that, like if you really wanted to create a custom audience, like I said, so between here is where you would do like a custom or lookalike audience. In Facebook Business Manager has like an audience manager section where you actually create the audience. So, you use your sources. All of this is secure, and the details about your customers are kept private. So Facebook says it right there. I literally just read that. So keep in mind that it's all like anonymous and stuff. But for a website, that's where you create an audience of anyone who visited your website in the last 180 days. You can create an audience of anyone who added a cart in the last 14 days. That's where you can kind of get, and then you're going to have the ad not serve to people who purchase maybe, right? So then you have a campaign of anyone who visited the website in the last 30 days, didn't purchase, I'm going to hit them with another ad. Maybe it has like a coupon or something. I'm sure a lot of you have had ads follow you around on the internet. This is why. This is obviously only specific to Facebook and Instagram, though, just because you're living in their ecosystem for their pixel. Customer list. I'm not going to get into all of these, but customer list is also another big one. So say you have 10,000 customers and you want to reach them with a very specific message. Even with a customer list is maybe where you can get a little more targeted with, like, you could probably do like an awareness or a reach campaign and still get a high return on ad spend, especially if you're under 100,000 people in your campaign. You probably don't even want to be optimizing for conversions. So if I'm running like a campaign to 10,000 customers, like those are people who know me, they're likely to buy. I'd actually probably rather do like a reach or a website visit campaign because I want to make sure I'm getting in front of all of them. And then like you can create audiences of people who viewed your videos or engage with your account, stuff like that. Creating a lookalike audience. A lot of us have heard of it. It's more than just lookalike. It is all a black box for what's actually in it. But we know that it takes things into consideration, like people's browsing behavior, their interests, their likes, what they do on Facebook, all that stuff, to create like an audience of people. So basically, say I have an audience of everyone who purchased on my website. I'm going to take that audience and create a lookalike. So Facebook's going to go find more people who are likely to match the characteristics of people who've already bought from my site. The size of the lookalike, the bigger it gets, so like 1%, 2%, 3%, the bigger the audience is, but the less they actually look or behave like your actual audience. So that's where you'll probably start with maybe like a 1%, 2.4 million people if you're doing national advertising. But I've seen people like we've successfully even gone up to 3 to 10%. It really all depends on the audience. And then there's the ads. So, like I said, in the ad set and at the campaign level, you're choosing the objective. At the ad set level, you're choosing the audience and the placements, which I didn't get into, but like you can say, I only want this ad to show up on Facebook feed, or I want to show up on Facebook feed and Instagram feed and Messenger, etc. Or you can just check like all placements. Nowadays, Facebook's recommending all placements and kind of let the algorithm decide where it should actually run. But if you do check all placements, just keep in mind how it'll show up in each placement. So here's the ads. Here's an example of some ads we did for Big Moods for Michigan stickers. We're based in Michigan, in case you didn't realize it already. And, these are how the ad would look on like Instagram and Facebook. Here's like you're going to go in, you're going to build the ad, and you're going to, again, you can learn all the details on how to do this in Blueprint, but you're going to want to make sure you have good body copy, strong image or video, the headline, and then a call to action, which is like shop now. That's just like a drop down. You can choose different call to actions. Optimization. So once your campaign's actually running, you're going to be testing different things like lookalike audiences, website audience, interest audience, custom lists, landing pages, and products. Maybe you'll have the same ad. Everything else is the same. The only difference is one of them is driving to your homepage and one is driving to the collection page of the product. And you'll see which one performs better from a return on ad spend standpoint. I think when it comes to optimization, though, once you've figured out like what is the best conversion funnel, really your biggest lever that you have is your creative. You're going to be testing video really 1x1 or 4x5, which is basically just like square or a little bit taller than square, just because most people are on mobile. You want to take up as much of the screen as possible. Test different images, test doing carousels. One of the biggest things you can test, though, is copy and messaging, especially messaging. A lot of people will be like, well, our brand only has one message. And if that's the case, you could probably get a little creative with the messaging or like the copy that you're doing. But I would really be open to testing different messaging, because like what you think might work might be totally different than what actually works. And you can always test different messaging, and it's pretty contained. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So we ran these two ads at the same time, a little different messaging. And the one on the right performed a lot better than the one on the left. And we just let them go against each other, and the one on the right won. And got a majority of the spend. So this is an example of testing different messaging with everything else the same. All right, I'm gonna be quick here because I have about 6 minutes left. Again, I still will have a couple minutes for questions at the end as well. So the state of direct consumer social. So if you're a business and you're trying to drive specifically sales through social media, awareness, engagement, and stuff is great. That's probably a different presentation. What I'm really looking at is how can I drive business results for the company, which is sales. Just keep in mind that there is no silver bullet. So you can do everything right from a marketing standpoint and still lose. So you could do all this crazy tactic stuff on Facebook and Google and creative, but at the end of the day, you might not still win if your product or your brand isn't the right fit, or if it isn't where it needs to be. Maybe you're too early in the market or something. But that doesn't downplay the importance of these tactics, because if you actually want to have even a chance to compete, all of these tactics and more than I just talked about today are the baseline. They get you in the door. And then what actually makes you win, though, if you're doing all these things right, is your brand, your product, and the creative. That's how you'll win. And then my final thought is just focus. Obviously, as like a business owner, that's something that I'm always trying to get better at, as well as focusing more than just on the marketing side, just making sure that we are focused. And obviously, any business of any size has limited resources, so you want to make sure you're prioritizing them towards the things that matter most. Especially when it comes to paid social, though, don't spread too thin. You don't have to be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok all at once, advertising on all at once. If you're a really big company and you have a dedicated team towards that, you could probably do that. But if you're just starting out or you're a small business, you have limited resources, I would focus first only on the channels with the most opportunity and the best audience fit, which in a lot of cases it's going to be Facebook and Instagram. I would argue if you really could potentially do Snapchat and TikTok if you're a younger audience, but even with that, I would Facebook and Instagram are going to be the first, and then once you get established on those, you can start testing on places like Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, etc. Thank you. So I guess now, if anyone has any questions, I don't know if we do these during here, you can like comment them, as well as obviously you can shoot me an email anytime if you want me to talk to you or your team about advertising on social or startups, really startup stuff in general.